Hi, welcome back to It's Mac Compatible, all about those games that are, you guessed it, Mac compatible. This week I'm joined by a guest that actually hasn't been on this podcast before, but that isn't surprising as I've only had one episode so far. His name is Jammy. Jammy, introduce yourself.
Hi, I am, when it comes to Mac gaming, a bit of a lapsed Mac gamer. Still very much a gamer, but I used Macs as personal computers a few years ago, and especially through university for work. So I was first a Mac user by choice, then because I had to, and then I discovered that although I couldn't play many mainstream games on a Mac, there were lots and lots of indie games, especially when the indie bundle was taking off. So it was through one of the bundles that I actually discovered this week's game that you're going to speak about, yeah?
Indie bundle, what's that?
It's became popular. Basically, when you think of indie music, there tend to be smaller bands that aren't signed. Indie became prevalent a few years ago when huge, expensive AAA games became far too expensive for new teams to get into, but the technology was getting to a point where you could very easily make simple games as only a one or two person team using home computers, home hardware. So for the last decade, there's been an explosion of really small experimental or artistic or just plain weird games that are made by a few people, and they are some fantastic ideas, and the indie games are, funnily enough, getting bigger and better and more interesting all the time.
And wherever these games can normally come up, places like Humble Store, the Humble Bundle Store?
Yeah, I think when I picked up this month's game, it predates the store. In fact, it was when it was a charity-based bundle, which it still does. And this was just one part of a bundle that I picked up where there were one or two games I had heard of, and those were what I was after. But the entire bundle had nearly a dozen games, and most of those I picked up and started playing when I'd never heard of them before.
Cool. Well, actually, let's get to the down to the punch. This week we're going to be talking about FTL, or Faster Than Light, the enhanced edition that I've been playing recently. It's a single-player ship simulator. Is that the right word for it?
Yeah, I think it's a roguelike, or a roguelite, maybe. I'm not familiar with rogues. I tried to play them a few times, but this one is probably the first roguelike that I actually understood.
Cool. Well, I've always thought of it as a top-down strategy on a very small-based way of playing.
Yeah, it's very much a moment-to-moment strategy thing. You're making tactics based on what's happening right now instead of a great big plan for the future.
Well, so let's just break it down. This game, obviously the visual viewers can actually see the ship that I'm talking about, the basic Kestrel cruiser that I started off with because I haven't played this game that much. You control the three members of the crew. You move them around to a station.
Or more crew members if you find them.
Yeah,
but
certainly, yeah. And they gain experience. You can shoot at enemy attack drones or enemy ships or rebel ships, whoever you come across. And obviously, as you get more advanced along the levels, you get your ship upgraded by scrap. Is that right?
Yes, the money you find is scrap, and you can use that to repair or buy resources or upgrade the machines you have, things like that.
Cool. Very cool. So by the end of it, I mean, you jump from one level to the other, and you sort of do this really cool effect where a little light goes along the ship and it just zooms out and then fades out of existence. Obviously, as the name suggests, traveling faster than light, so you can't actually see it zoom off into the distance.
Yes, and this being a roguelike, you'll probably lose first time. You might lose the first 10, the first 100 times I did, but every single time you do play, you understand it a little better. And I find this fairly appealing because a run can just be a few minutes, or it has a very good autosave feature where you can just stop and jump right back in at some other time.
And you just finished a run, didn't you, just after we started this?
Yeah, I had an exceptional run. I was doing my homework and I got up to almost the last zone until I caught fire and exploded. But that lasted quite a long time.
I think that's pretty regular occurrence for me, catching fire and blowing it up. That's usually what gets me.
Yeah, I have a habit of opening the windows to try and put fires out, which works in space.
Yeah, so do I. Until my systems get damaged and I can't open the doors anymore.
Oh no. That's another thing as well, where as your ship gets damaged, every system is tied to a specific room. So if you take damage in your med bay, you can't heal until you've actually fixed it up with some spanners first.
So the systems obviously are, for those again who are looking at the visual version of this, shields, engines, oxygen generation, weapons.
Those are the systems in the starting ship, but there are lots of other upgrades you can find, and you can unlock more ships that start in different ways. Ultimately, you've got your crew that you can move around. You've got your weapon systems. That's the line of boxes at the bottom. And you have your power supply in the bottom left. And a tactic that a lot of players do is that they never have enough power for all their systems. If no one's hurt, you don't really need your med bay. If you don't have any hull breaches, you don't need your life support and full power. Oh yes, and the last system are the doors. Like I said, I like to wind the window down to let the fire out.
What about the sensors? That's a pretty cool system. It means you can see where the enemy crew are in their ship.
Yep. Yes. Super useful if you're trying to take out their crew without destroying the ship. And if you have people manning stations, that can give you a bonus as well. So if you can see people with the sensors, if you have someone on that station, you can also see how much their weapons are charged up.
Very cool. So you can target subsystems when you're attacking. So if you want to shoot your laser into their weapons purposely to delay them, or if they're trying to jump away, you can always delay their engine as well.
Yep. Or you can see, trying to make a guess of how good their crew is. If it's a Mantis crew, they're very slow at repairing, so I like to try and take their life support down and just let them panic.
A Mantis cruiser, that's one of the ships you can get as well, isn't it?
Yes, I think you can get a variation of most ships in the game, at least one for each species. I think, from what I remember, I think the Mantis Cruiser is... It only has a couple of basic weapons, but you start off with a teleporter room, and you have the Mantis are the best at hand-to-hand, so their cruiser works best if you make a boarding party.
Oh, that's why they always seem to get me overwhelmed. I always have to cram 5 crew members into one room to try and kill one Mantis.
Upgrade your doors and wind the window down. I'm a big fan of opening the airlock.
Just shuttle them out into space, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't actually fly out the window though, do they? Even if there's no air and the ship's doors are all open, they just die of suffocation.
Yeah, and the air... Life support is just the air supply, really. The air that's in the room, if it's white, you're okay, there's air in there, and as there's less and less air in the room, maybe you've opened the door, maybe you've got a hull breach or a fire is using it up, the room will gradually turn more and more red. And the really cool thing is that, I didn't notice at first, is the air actually flows from room to room. So you've got a hull breach in one room, and you're trying to fix it. I normally open the door in all the surrounding rooms, so it takes longer for all the oxygen to leave that breach.
Ah, because the other rooms are filling up with air and pushing the air into it.
Yeah, you can actually spread it around.
That is a really cool thing. I did not even realise that was happening.
Yeah, sometimes if a fire's nowhere near an airlock, but my doors are strong enough, I lock that room down and turn off the life support until the fire's burned through all the air in that one room.
And all this stuff is happening obviously in the background because it never tells, other than the colour coordination that you've already talked about, I've never noticed that it says to me, this room is getting really, really low on oxygen. It certainly has an oxygen percentage in the bottom right-hand corner.
Yeah, I normally spam the spacebar. This game lets you pause at any time, and you can take stock of what's happening, try to figure out what you want to do, and you can actually give orders to your crew or redistribute power before you unpause.
I was just about to mention that, the pause. It is a really, really good thing in this game because you need it, otherwise you're absolutely panicking. You come out of warp and you're being attacked by somebody, and you have to pause to just take a breath, take stock, set your men to an action, unpause, wait for your weapons to boot it back up. They all fire, you had the enemy attack you, you pause, you think about what you want to do next. It's almost like a turn-based game, but with the action of a live action game. It gives you that time to pause.
Oh yeah, you can absolutely play it turn-based if you just pause it after every action and decide what you want to do next.
I'm not ashamed to say that that's pretty much how I play it. I just wait and think about it, do my action.
Oh yeah, it is very hard to get to the end. You need to squeeze every second.
I mean, I haven't even got to the end of this game. I don't think I've got past level 4. I've certainly unlocked one of the ships. I have unlocked...
I think the first one that most people unlock is the NG Cruiser.
Oh, that's the one, yeah, NG Cruiser, that's the one I've unlocked.
Yeah, NGs aren't very good hand-to-hand, but they're great at repairs, so their cruisers have lots of drones, and they like to use robots to do the fighting for them.
Good to know, good to know. I think I'll try that on my next technique.
Yeah, I think every ship has a remix version as well when you get the achievements with them. So the second version of the NG ship only has one crew member, and the rest of it is drones and nothing else.
Oh, craziness. But I've got to say, this is my cool down game, my chill out game. It's a single player game, so
Yeah, it's really relaxing.
the soundtrack is just phenomenal.
I love that soundtrack, yeah. It doesn't stop one song and start another, it just flows from tune to tune based on where you are. So every species has their own slightly subtle mix on the soundtrack, or what's happening, like are you at a shop where it's safe, are you in an asteroid field where it's very risky to get into a fight, then the track will change to reflect that. Nebulas are really spooky.
Yeah, when you've got no shields. So there's obviously, again, those who are watching the visual video of the version of this are saying, well, now I should be in a nebula, if I can get the mix right. And these are, you're right, they're scary because you've got no shields at all, and you're just jumping as fast as possible, hoping you get to a store before you run out of fuel.
Yeah, and although this is a roguelike, you don't directly fly your ship, you're choosing where you want to go, you appear there, and it's more Star Trek style Navy combat submarine stuff than it is with Star Wars dogfighting and flying around. So that it's a perfect game to play on iPad because you're just the captain in the seat giving commands, not actually the pilot.
Is this available on iPad yet?
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, you've asked a couple of times, you've said that roguelike. What do you mean by that?
Roguelikes are a category of game, maybe one of the oldest categories of game. It started off as a mainframe game on American universities back in the infancy of the internet. And what it is most of the content is randomly generated. So you can play them again and again. And they're usually very difficult. And you usually begin with very little resources. But generally the rules of the roguelike from one game to the next is consistent. So you are going through here, every single time you fail, you as a player have learned what does and doesn't work in specific situations and where you might want to push your luck, where you might want to be conservative. And what happens is you are just being given a lot of interesting random decisions to make every single time you play it, and as you play more you'll get better and better at making those decisions and get a little further every time.
Yeah, so it's more repetition and learning than getting it perfect the first time round.
Yeah, you will not get it perfect the first time round, but it's not just a memorizing system, because it is throwing new options at you every single time you play. In this game, the way that's done, because you're not piloting your ship, it's not building a map for you to explore. Instead, it's putting stars on space, and you just jump from one to the next using that FTL drive. And you don't know what's going to be there until you arrive. Once you get there, it could be a pirate ship, and then it might give the option to accept a bribe for them, or maybe you could attack them, maybe you're trying to save a civilian ship, maybe nothing's there. It's just asteroids hitting your shields until you leave.
I've got to say, that's always a race. You're always sitting there waiting for your FTL to power up and you're like, please, don't hit any of these rocks.
Oh no, I'm on fire. No, there's another solar flare. Everything's on fire. Oh no, the engine's on fire.
That's the hardest, difficult bit where the engine's on fire and you're just quickly running all the crewmen to the engine room going, crew, repair! You try to jump away as fast as possible.
And a lot of these options as well, your choices that you can make expand based on what you have in your ship. So there's usually one or two choices, but if you, I don't know, you might need to help people evacuate a space station. Very risky. You could try to dock, or you could try to send your own crew in. There's also a random chance of whether will that benefit you? Will you save people? Will you lose a crew member to giant spiders? Which happens a lot, oddly. And those are weighted one way or another, but there is still a little bit of a dice roll in it. However, if during that evacuation mission you have a teleport on your ship and it's upgraded, that'll pop up as an option, and that is normally always beneficial to you. So a very good tip to take is don't concentrate on just your combat weapons. Early on I spent a lot of the time just upgrading my shields and my weapons, thinking that's all I needed to get through, and I was absolutely starved for resources until I realised I could power up my med bay, and that actually gives you a lot of options that pop up in these random events. Or put up your engines and you might be able to outrun ambushes.
Ah, very cool.
Yeah, I think the enhanced version added more of these options for your normal combat stuff, so there's some random events where it's good to have your pilot upgraded. Normally I never did that, because that only powered up an autopilot system, and I never leave my pilot in the seat empty. But now you can get some of these special options if you do have a pilot system upgraded.
Very cool. There's also, I think, is a great idea in the enhanced editions is actually difficulty settings. Easy, medium, and hard. And to be honest, even the easy, it's not that easy. It just changes the difficulty of the enemies a little bit and your rewards.
Yeah, I'm still sticking to medium just because I'm stubborn, but I am almost never getting to the very end, even now.
And how long have you been playing this game?
Since university. So that'd be about 4 or 5 years now. It's just super relaxing to go in, fire it up while something's downloading, or if you're tired, and just play it until you feel like dozing off.
I like to, take it just a breath, and after playing some pretty hardcore MOBA, if I'm playing Heroes of the Storm, I already get sometimes quite wound up at people not helping me in the team fights, as we were discussing last week in Dota. So, it's nice to chill out.
In this, I'm aware I'm probably going to lose anyway, so it takes all the pressure off.
Being comfortable with the defeat, I think, is the thing you got to be going into playing this game.
Well, every single loss is something that you learn.
Definitely, I think for me, I've really got to dial it back because all I seem to do is pile all my energy into my shields.
Yeah, that's very important. But having a lot of engines can eventually let you dodge half the shots fired at you. And some weapons go through shields. There's tactical options like missiles ignore shields, but are easier to dodge. And a very early strategy is to fire a missile into their shield generator so you can pick off the rest of the ship with your lasers.
See, all this knowledge is just flooding into my brain. I've just been playing this obviously the wrong way.
If your lasers can get through their shields, take down the weapon right away and just gradually pick them off. It's usually a long way or a risky way of doing most things.
It does feel very, like I said before, very turn-based, very slow and methodical, which, like we've talked about before, that's your cup of tea. This is what you need at the end of the night. Or if you just got an hour, as you said, something downloading, just want to chill out. It's not the high octane, high active game you want here.
Yeah, all the stuff on your ship, the power distribution and everything, is instant, but the main way you interact with enemy ships is firing your weapons, and they take time to charge. Some very good weapons may take 20 full seconds before you have a shot, in which case you need to wonder, is it really worth buying that, or should I stick with my weaker, faster ones?
This game, every single time I play it more, I feel like it's, just layered so complex. It's like honeycomb. Every single time I think you see something, then you see a bit more, you look again, you see a bit more, look again, you see a bit more. I really enjoyed this game, and I've hardly even scratched the surface of playing it. And it never feels the same, even though I'm using the same ship on the same run at the same difficulty. It never feels the same.
Yeah, and it only gets more interesting when you unlock more ships. They can be super difficult to use, but they are, I think, unfairly difficult to unlock as well. I think it has been changed that there's more different ways to unlock the same ship, so it is more likely you're going to get a new one eventually. But often, I think I did unlock once the stealth ship that starts with no shields whatsoever.
What? How do you even survive with one shot? That's it, your subsystem's
Yes. Yeah, if you could take one shot in the wrong place, the idea is to enter the fight in stealth and then ambush them.
gone. Well, that's going to be interesting to try out.
Yeah, I did have one memorable game where I died in the very second fight. A laser swept through my hull and everything caught fire.
Oh, dear me. Did opening all those doors not work?
No, I couldn't. The doors caught fire.
Oh, dear me.
Yeah, or even worse, you can get a door stuck open and then the door control can catch fire.
Stuck venting all the atmosphere into the garden.
Yeah, if it's an outer door, that's a problem.
Oh, dear me. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this week. I know it's a little bit shorter than last week, but there was a lot less to dive into when it comes to this game. But I really hope you just get out there and enjoy it. And Jammy, what presents do you have online? Is there anything for you to promote?
I play a ridiculous amount of FF14 with the Nash Red Wings, so if you are on Mog's server, feel free to try and join us.
I hope some of you understood that, because I have no clue what he just said. But
As I went nerd. Nerd.
Well, I'm sure those of you who know what he's talking about enjoyed that reference. But for me, myself, I'm at Twitch at Keljorn Ironfist, KELJORN IRONFIST.
Oh, you got your vowels.
Yeah, indeed. And I also write for a website called respawning.co.uk, so you can check them out on Twitter at respawning, and their website respawning.co.uk, or their Twitch, which is again respawning. And you can check me out on Twitter at Bagley Davidson, BAGLEY DAVIDSON. And yourself, Jammy, you on the Twitter?
Oh, no, I'm not nearly that social.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for joining us. You take care, and see you online.
Been fun to see you. Okay, thanks very much.